Welcome back to the new session, children. In the previous classes, we were learning about the balance of payment, accounting, and the economic transactions of balance of payment, namely visible items, invisible items, then unilateral transfers and capital transfers. Then we learned about the components of the balance of payment. They are capital account and the current account. Current account consisting of visible items, then invisible items, unilateral transfers. Capital account consisting of capital receipts and payments. Then we learned about balancing of the current account. Till there we learned, and then we started with the components of capital account. We fully learned about the components of current account, namely visible items, invisible items, then unilateral transfers, how we balance these theoretically. Then we started learning about capital account. Then we finished with the two components of capital account. They are private transactions and official transactions. Now, hope you all remember what is a private transaction and what is official transaction. Now, I will explain it once again to you. Components of first component of capital account, that is private transactions. What are these private transactions? All those transactions which affect the assets and liabilities of the private sector is known as private transactions. So once again, all types of transactions which affect the assets and liabilities of the private sector. Private sector or private organizations can take short-term and long-term loans from outside. When they take the loans, they receive it. It is an asset for them, which can be recorded on the credit side. And when they repay the loans with the rate of interest, money is flowing outside. It is a liability for them. So, here you can see with this transaction, the private sector is experiencing both assets as well as liabilities. So, when they accept the loan, it is an asset for them. But when they have to repay the loan with an interest, it is a liability for them. So, these kind of transactions which can cause a change in the assets and the liabilities is known as the private transactions. Now, the next one is official transactions, which is also known as government transactions. Just as the private transactions takes place, official transactions also happen in the economy. Government also takes short-term and long-term loans from outside. So, when the government receives the loan, it is a receipt for the government. That means it is an asset for the government. But if the government has to repay the amount with the rate of interest, it is a liability for the government. So, government is experiencing both assets as well as liabilities through this kind of transaction. This is known as official transaction or government transaction. Now, we will move on to the next component of capital account. So, how many components capital account has? 5 components. First one is the private transaction, second one is government transaction, the third one is foreign direct investment. 5 components. 5 components are private transactions, official transactions, then foreign direct investment, then comes portfolio investment and the banking capital. We finished with the first 2, that is private transactions and official transaction. Now we will move on to the next one, foreign direct investment. What is meant by the foreign direct investment, which is also known as FDI? You might have heard the short form of foreign direct investment, FDI. Let us be familiar with the topic and the concept. What is foreign direct investment? It refers to purchase of an asset in the rest of the world. What is meant by that? Purchase of an asset. We are always interested to purchase an asset. Here, purchase of an asset by an Indian company. So, we are talking from the point of view of India. So, purchase of an asset by India from the rest of the world. What is meant by rest of the world? the countries which are abroad is known as the rest of the world. So, foreign direct investment refers to the purchase of asset by the Indian company in the rest of the world, which gives full control to the buyer over an asset. By doing that purchase, the Indian company is getting the full control over the asset. That is known as foreign direct investment. So, just look at the definition once again. Foreign direct investment refers to the purchase of an asset in the rest of the world, which gives full control to the buyer over an asset. In this example, who is the buyer? India or Indian company. Indian company is buying a foreign asset or asset from the rest of the world. When the Indian company buys the asset from the rest of the world, it is an asset for the Indian company, and that Indian company is getting full control over the asset. That means Indian company is buying that asset as a whole. No other party is involved in that. So, as no other party is involved in that transaction, the full control of that asset is for the Indian company. Now, when I give an example, it will be clear to you. Acquisition of the foreign firm by an Indian company is an example of foreign direct investment. When an Indian company purchases a foreign company, it is known as foreign direct investment. Now, if an Indian company has to purchase a foreign asset, if it is a foreign direct investment, you can just imagine how strong the financial position of that particular company is. Then only it can be involved in a foreign direct investment. So, acquisition of a foreign company by an Indian company is an example of foreign direct investment. There the Indian company has the full control over that particular asset. The example ITC, it has purchased the foreign company or foreign asset. It has involved in the foreign direct investment. Some of the examples of ITC products. ITC groups have big hotels. They own very big hotels in Bangalore, in different places of our country. Then the other products of ITC is Fiyama Wills, the toilet soap that we use. Then the ITC, they have showrooms of textile products. Then different products, classmates book that you use, it is an example of an ITC product. So, ITCs, they are the big investors. They are financially strong to do such kind of foreign direct investment. So, if you search, you can find about which are the products made by ITC. So, ITC is the best example which I can give you for foreign direct investment. Now, we will move on to the next one, that is portfolio investment. Now, we will move on to the definition of portfolio investment. Portfolio investment refers to the purchase of an asset in the rest of the world. The definition of both FDI and portfolio stands to be the same for the first line or first two lines of the sentence, but later on you can find the difference. So, this is the same. It refers to the purchase of an asset in the rest of the world. Portfolio investment is also the purchase of an asset by an Indian company in the rest of the world. Again, you may note the change, which do not give full control over the asset. In the case of foreign direct investment, what we learned, for the buyer, it gives full control over the asset. But in the portfolio investment, for the buyer, it does not give full control. It does not give full control means what? A partial control is there, right? That is only partial control. Did you see the statement? Only partial control over the asset. The buyer is getting only a partial control over the asset, not the full control over the asset. Buyer is purchasing the asset, but he is getting, in the sense Indian company, but the Indian company who is purchasing the asset is getting only a partial control over the asset. Why partial control over the asset? Then we should know what kind of a purchase is that, right? Example, purchase of the share of the foreign company by an Indian company. I hope it is very clear to you. Purchase of a share. The Indian company is not purchasing that foreign company as a whole. Instead of that, they are purchasing a share of the foreign company. Purchasing the share of the foreign company means only a partial control is there for the Indian company, and the other half is there for that particular company itself. Only company's share is being purchased by the Indian company. So, it does not have a full control over the asset, but it is an asset for the Indian company. Only a partial control, but it is an asset. So, that is known as portfolio investment. Example, Tata has purchased, has involved in the portfolio investment. It has a share in the foreign company. So, that can be considered as an example for the portfolio investment. It gives only a partial control, not the full control, but there is a partial control and it is an asset for the Indian company. This is known as the portfolio investment. I hope it is clear to you. So, portfolio investment as well as foreign direct investment can cause a change in the asset. Next. Last component of the capital account, that is banking capital. What is meant by banking capital? Banking capital refers to the foreign exchange transactions and investments in the foreign currencies and securities by commercial banks and other banks which are authorized to deal in the foreign exchange. What do you mean by that? Simply, I can make this sentence simple for you. Now, you know RBI is involved in the buying and purchase, selling of the foreign exchange. When I explained the money and banking, sole authority of issuing the currency, I told you we will be explaining all these topics in the chapter foreign exchange market. But here also we are in need of that particular concept. RBI, you know, is involved in the purchase and selling of foreign exchange reserves in the foreign exchange market. Now, because RBI is the monetary authority. Now, what is this foreign exchange market? It is a market system where the foreign currencies are exchanged according to the demand and supply forces. You will be learning in detail with regard to all these things in the coming chapter foreign exchange market. So, RBI purchases and sells the foreign exchange in the market whenever the situation is favorable for it. So, RBI as well as commercial banks are also involved in the foreign exchange reserve transactions. So, they are having an authority, they are authorized to enter into such foreign exchange transactions. Such kind of transactions where both RBI and the commercial banks who are authorized to enter into that kind of transaction is known as banking capital. So, banking capital means what? It refers to the foreign exchange transactions and investments which are made by commercial banks and other banks which are authorized to deal with the foreign exchange. You know, there are authorized dealers which are involved in the buying and selling of foreign exchange. Commercial banks and RBI plays a very important role in dealing with this foreign exchange reserves. So, they have the authorized, they are the authorized dealers to do it. So, their right to do the authorized dealing with all these kind of foreign exchange reserves, with that they sell and they buy. That kind of a transaction in which these banks are involved is known as banking capital. So, RBI will sell and buy the securities whenever it is favorable for them. So, by acquiring the foreign exchange, it can make changes in the assets as well as liabilities of our country. So, that is what is involved in the banking capital. So, banking capital means the authorized power of the commercial banks as well as the Reserve Bank to enter into the foreign exchange market and to deal with the foreign exchange reserves, to make investments in the foreign exchange, investments and to involve in the foreign exchange currencies is known as banking capital. Now, let us see how do banks get the foreign exchange. I told you the commercial banks and the reserve banks are the authorized dealers in the foreign exchange, right? Now, let us see how do these banks get the foreign exchange. I have already explained you how RBI is involved in the foreign exchange reserves. You know it, isn't it? In the foreign exchange market, RBI will buy and sell the securities. Let us think about the asset. It will buy the foreign exchange reserves in the foreign exchange market. From whom? From the authorized dealers. That is what is written here in the board. How do banks get foreign exchange? Now let us first see RBI. Regarding RBI, RBI accumulates the foreign exchange reserves by purchasing it from authorized dealers in the market. So RBI will purchase the foreign exchange reserves from authorized dealers in the market. From the authorized dealers in the market, RBI will purchase the foreign exchange reserves. Let us see who all are the authorized dealers in the market. Authorized dealers are government of all the countries, Reserve Bank of India of all the countries, commercial banks of all the countries, then individual investors and other financial institutions of all the countries. All these are the authorized dealers of the foreign exchange reserves. Who all are the authorized dealers of the foreign exchange market? RBI of all the countries, like our RBI, other countries' RBI are also involved in the foreign exchange market. So they are also authorized dealers. Commercial banks, then other financial institutions, you know, World Bank, IMF, and other investors, individual investors, they are also authorized dealers of foreign exchange market. From these authorized dealers, RBI will buy and sell the foreign exchange reserves. Now, how do commercial banks get the foreign exchange reserves? Other than this, they get the foreign exchange reserves from RBI, already I told you, as well as by financing the trade between the companies and customers. Let us see the first part. Commercial banks receives the foreign exchange reserves from RBI. How? Because you know, commercial banks are directly involved in the transaction with the RBI. So from the RBI, they get foreign exchange reserves. You know, commercial banks will meet only RBI, lender of last resort. So all kinds of transactions takes place between the commercial banks and RBI, in that the foreign exchange reserves will be transacted. Other than that, how commercial banks are getting the foreign exchange reserves? Next point, by financing trade between the companies and customers. Now you know that the commercial banks are the financiers. They are the one who do the transactions of money from one place to the other. For example, the Indian companies which are located abroad, those foreign companies which are located here, for the payment system of the workers in those companies, it is different. The payment has to be done only according to the monetary system prevailing in that country. There we need foreign exchange. An Indian, the person who is working in Indian company, the person who, the Indian companies which are located abroad, at the same time those companies which are located here. The transaction, the payment system, all these takes place with the help of the monetary system which is available in that particular country. So the transactions of this finance is done with the help of commercial banks. During that time, the involvement of foreign exchange will definitely come in. This is one method through which the commercial banks receives the foreign exchange reserves. This is how the commercial banks and the RBI accumulates the foreign exchange reserves. So this is all about the components of the capital account. So what are the components of capital account? The capital account consists of private transactions, official transactions known as government transactions, then comes foreign direct investment, then comes portfolio investment, and the last one, banking capital. The power of RBI and the commercial banks to invest in foreign currencies and foreign exchange reserves, it's buying and selling. They are the authorized dealers in the foreign exchange market, is known as the banking capital. So hope the components of capital account is clear to you.